Hey everybody, I am so excited to have Gina Tabrizy on today to talk about mental health, hope, what's giving her hope, what's giving all of us hope during this difficult time. And gosh, there's so much that I want to talk to her about. So I'm really excited to have her on. I've had her on the podcast before, so you can go back and listen to that episode. I'll make sure that I post it later on so you can check it out. But I think it's really important, especially during this current situation that we're dealing with, the pandemic. I'm so excited to have Gina Tabrizy on to talk about mental health and hope and how to uh, thrive instead of just survive. So here she is, I think. Let's see if it works. If it works.
Oh, we did it.
Gina,
Hallelujah.
how are you?
Hi. Well, I'm
I'm
here
so
and I'm happy to be here with you. This is
I'm so
great.
happy to have I'm
Yeah.
so happy to have you on. I'm glad that it worked because I know that was something we were both trying to figure out is like, will this work? So I'm glad that
Yeah.
it's working. But how are you doing?
Good. My girl Shay's on here. Hi, Shayda.
Aw, how's everything in California right now?
Well, it's California, so we don't always follow the rules and listen and, and do what we're told. So there's tons of people still going out to the beaches and walking, going out and exercising because, California is very much a state of health and wellness. It's like a mecca for exercise and fitness people. So besides the podcast and everything that's happening, people are outside, people are walking, some with masks, some without.
Mm,
And so it's very hard to tell people to go against their nature.
right.
And this is not human nature to be stuck at home and not socializing and not being engaged and not being in physical contact with other humans. That it's an oddity that I don't know ultimately how it's going to impact us. I hope for the good, but in the interim, it's a struggle for most people. And if people have any kind of mental health issues, this is really frightening.
Yeah. Well, and
For
that's
them.
why I wanted to have this conversation with you because I've been so grateful to get to know you and we've had you on the podcast. We've gotten to do a lot of things together, but I just have had heard of so many friends and had so many experiences throughout this. It's such a trauma in so many different ways, and everybody's dealing with it in different ways. And so I wanted to have you on just to talk about kind of what's going on right now and how people can which is crazy. It's hard to
It is.
even decipher, and I
It
think
is crazy.
some of it is we're not really going to know
Right.
what the output of this is
Right.
going to be, especially with regards to mental health and addiction and all the other kind of things that people are dealing with right
Struggling
now.
with. Yeah.
So
So part of that is that sorry, I'm trying to send somebody a little face here. It's not going
yeah.
through. I'm learning to be techie, so that's an advantage because I spent most of my career of 34 years as a therapist. And when I came into the field, I tell people, and they don't believe me, but when I went through my master's program, I did it on a typewriter.
Hmm.
That's how old I am. So they were just coming out with these monster computers, and you had to know how to write code in order to speak to the computer to get it to do anything. So all those hashtag, backslash, all of these links that you guys just click on, just imagine we used to have to type every single thing to communicate. And
It's
so through that, I mean, I've seen a lot of changes, but through my journey, everything was written. You just write notes in a chart. And I spent my entire career like that. We didn't convert to electronic health record till this last year.
yeah.
So all of this is, even though I've been on it for 2 years, it's still very new to me. It wasn't a necessary function in my role.
Right. But it's so great. I mean, even the work that you're doing and you have the Ask Gina show, and so people can
Right.
go on and you can connect with people who you probably wouldn't get to connect with were it not
No,
for
it's been really,
social
that part
media.
of it's been really fun. So I guess I'm saying that to say that, look for the joy in the insanity, because there's a lot of insanity. And I know people get afraid, and I know people struggle emotionally. And if you're already depleted, if you already went into COVID and you already had depression and you already had anxiety, this just amplifies it. it's not that it's that different for those people. They're used to living in a world that says everything's insane. I don't feel good about anything. I don't know how to connect. And nobody sees me, hears me, loves me. They already live there. So then this just kind of validates, in a sense, it kind of validates and affirms for them that we're all isolated, right? And we're all alone. And so yes, it's scary, but for us who don't live in that world, in some ways, we're more traumatized, you know, because this is unfamiliar territory and we're not used to not going and hopping over to our friend's house and sitting together and, you know, breaking bread or having conversations or just, you know, on an impulse running to the store to go grab whatever you want. But people with depression often isolate, and it's a natural part, you know, of their story. And so anything at all that you can seek joy in, whether it's going in your backyard and you see all the little birdies' nests, like I have so many little birdies' nests, a lot of them are falling down and I'm collecting them. I'm going, look how beautiful this is. Like I've never taken the time to sit and look thoroughly at a nest and how it was created, you know, and the ingenuity of that for the little birds. And so we're in a space of creativity and ingenuity, you know, and I thought about it today. And as I posted this today, I said, we're going to talk about thriving, not surviving, you know,
right.
And thriving is not about this is happening to me. And so I just got to suck it up and I just got to walk through it. That's surviving. Thriving is saying, how can I show up with everything that I have and do something that will not only light me on fire, will light other people on fire. So when Kate wakes up and goes, what can I do on One Girl Revolution to reach that person that's at home who's surviving, not thriving, and she invites me to join her in that story. Well, I'm joining her in that story, you know?
Yeah.
Very easy for me to say no. I can say, I'm tired. By the way, I'm undergoing cancer treatment. I'm in chemotherapy. I'm tired. I've lost some work. So my work hours were greatly reduced. So I've got about 10 hours that I'm committed to a week. What else can I throw in there? You know, I can say to you that I could take that circumstance in those situations. By the way, I'm a survivor of depression. I've had depression the majority of my life. So I can take all of those things and decide for myself that it's not worth it. Life's not worth it. This sucks. You know, my life is miserable. I'm never. If I go there, it would be so easy to get sucked into the void of depression and just live there. And I have every permission to get up every morning and not get out of my clothes right now. I can just stay in my pajamas and stay in my misery and stay in my bed, and nobody's going to care and nobody's going to say anything and nobody's going to confront me or support me in that, right?
Right.
So you have to do contrary action. If you want to thrive instead of survive, when you wake up, you have to say, no, damn it, I'm getting up out of this bed and I'm getting dressed and I'm putting on my full makeup and I'm doing my hair and I'm walking outside and I'm calling a friend and I'm writing a poem and I'm reading in the Bible or reading an affirmation book or a prayer book. I'm going to write, you know, do your 4th step that you've not wanted to do if you're in recovery and you've been putting it off forever, or your 9th step, making amends. This is a great time to make amends, to forgive, to reach out to people that you've wronged, to clean your side of the street. There's so much you can do. Clean your side of the street emotionally, clean your closet physically, like, you know, just get creative in the space that you're in. And I did a little broadcast. I think it was on my page, or it was on the radio. I also do the radio Thursday nights, KOCI radio.com, and it's on the internet. And if you're local, it's on the radio. So we were talking about, you know, for me, I don't know why, but one of the things I would always dread is making my bed. And so it's like the rebellious teenager where I'm like, my house looks great. I'm put together. I work hard. I do all these things. I'm not making my bed. And it's been this weird rebellious thing that I've done throughout my entire marriage. My husband, who's meticulous as far as cleanliness goes, and he always makes his side of the bed. And I refuse to make my side of the bed, right? And I'm sure it's some childhood crap that I still have to work through, like everything, right? And so I decided that this was a game changer. I go, of all the things you could do different while you're in quarantine, what can you do, Gina? Gina, you can make your freaking bed. And I'm telling you, 20-something years, me not making my bed. The rest of my room, my house, everything beautiful. And that was my one rebellion. That was the place that I was going to stay, feeling like I have some control or some power, not giving in to the man kind of thing, you know?
Right.
And I did it. And when I did it, I realized how silly it was, you know, and I realized how, you know, if that's the place I needed to draw the line, great. I wasn't harming anybody. But there's other places psychologically that we draw lines and we wind up harming ourselves, where we say, I refuse to, I'm not going to go to counseling and get help because I'm not going to call that friend that I went off because I was right. You know, I'm entitled to. I'm not going to forgive my husband because he didn't put the dishes away last night.
Yeah.
You know, or I'm going to get mad at my doggy because he peed on the carpet and he knows better. So there's places we draw lines to choose to be angry, to choose to live in resentment. It creates an impossible scenario for us. Harboring that anger and harboring that resentment, especially right now, is only doing damage to you, you know? Yeah. And speaking from that place of healing, you know, with my cancer and everything that I read, I'm taking the most toxic medication you can take. There is nothing more toxic than chemotherapy. And I'm doing it willingly and resisting at the same time, because it's a part of me that says there has to be something greater than this that can heal me, that isn't going to destroy my body. So while that's happening, I'm simultaneously meditating and praying and doing mega doses of vitamin C. I'm vegan. I juice every day. I exercise every day. Do you think I want to do those things? No. I want to be pissed off and hurt and say, why the hell do I freaking have cancer again? Because this is round 2 in 3 years. But when I go in that space, what does it do for me? It does nothing for me. It makes me feel horrible. And then I feel sad. And then I'm crying. And then it affects my family because they're watching me be sad and they can't help me. And then I'm in powerlessness and I feel vulnerable and I feel weak. And it's another day of my life that's been taken away because I chose to go into a space of hurt and victimization instead of power and thriving and power and rising above the circumstance. So whatever anybody's circumstance right now is, and all of us are in COVID, so all of us are in trauma and all of us are being traumatized by this thing. We really, really have a choice mentally what to put our attention to. We have that power. And in that, we have the power to heal, to say, I'm healing, I'm well. I say this every freaking day. I don't care what the blood work says. I don't care how long it's going to take. I have to believe every single day that I can get through. Not only can I get through this, I will heal and live beyond this, because that's a choice that I make. And there's so many studies, and there's a beautiful, beautiful documentary on Netflix called Heal. I think everybody should watch it. Because it will inspire you. It's not just if you have cancer, it's if you have anything. If you have depression, you have anxiety, you're in a domestic violence situation, which right now is crippling, you know. Those of you that are stuck in a home with your perpetrator and being told to stay there, you know, it doesn't get scarier than that. But this guides you and kind of tells you the power of just believing, the power of the placebo effect, which I'm sure you're all aware of. Sometimes you give somebody a sugar pill and say, yeah, this is going to take away your cancer. And that person does as well as the person that's undergone the formal treatment protocols. And sometimes they do better. Right. So, it's such a simple thing that you don't even have to go to therapy to do, you know. Yeah. And I'm a strong advocate for therapy and cleaning out the monsters in your emotional closet and cleaning out your history and cleaning out your trauma. Because every time that you do, you're just opening space to heal and to move forward from it and thrive, you know. You know me, I can talk forever, so I'm going to stop so that you can ask me questions or comment or whatever you need.
Something that has struck me, Gina, and you kind of tapped on that in numerous ways, is we all are so busy. We live in a culture where we're so busy, and we oftentimes can just kind of push all of our emotions, things we're dealing with aside. And right now, there's nowhere to run. We're all sheltering in place. You're at home and you have to deal with all those emotions. Right. And I think a lot of people that have never experienced anxiety, depression, all these other things are now experiencing those. And maybe those stem from one of the things that they kind of had pushed down way down deep in their souls. But now we're having to deal with all of that. And so I think that's a really difficult thing. So what kind of advice would you give to people who are dealing with something, whether it's emotions or depression or anxiety right now? What can we do in this time? You offered a few things there.
So when it comes to feelings, we should never ignore them. And there's a fine line between completely ignoring them is on one side of the spectrum, and then on the other side of the spectrum is completely surrendering to them and giving them power and belief. So your feelings are not facts. Just because I feel sad, that doesn't mean my life in its totality is sad and that I'm never going to be liberated from that emotion. So acknowledge what the feeling is and acknowledge the discomfort in that. I'm sad that I can't go drive to my boyfriend's house or my mother's house and just go hang out. You know, I'm sad that I haven't heard from my friends, by the way, while I'm in quarantine and I'm like reaching out, nobody's reaching back. That's really fucking sad. Excuse my French, you know? Yeah. So, and that's happening. And you're taking an inventory of who's important and who's not important in your life. And you're reaching out to the people that are important to you. And so feel whatever feelings you have about that. Just disappointment, abandonment, maybe some betrayal. And as you feel your feelings and acknowledge them, the most important thing is to say to yourself, this too shall pass. I am capable of living beyond this emotion. This emotion doesn't define me. On my page and on, I did a Zoom, and I'll get copy of it soon, but I did a tapping. It was on Ask Gina, and it was last Wednesday. So if somebody wants to look up the date, and you go on Ask Gina and you click on my videos, you scroll back to whatever the date was last Wednesday. So I have to look every morning at the calendar to know the date.
I'll post it. I'll post it. So I'll post it.
And I know we're all in that. But I did an exercise called tapping, which is a technique that therapists use, but also acupuncturists use and spiritual teachers and coaches use, called emotional freedom technique, EFT. So if you put that in Google and you say tapping, you can look up and see the protocol, but I showed it. And it's basically tapping on the meridians of your body where your highest electrical impulses are, to send a signal to the brain, to tell your brain to slow down. And the fight, flight, or freeze response in the amygdala, it's electrical impulse that sends a sense of peace and relaxation, right? So it's like getting a massage. Now, this is a funny one because you got to touch your face. So I washed my hands. They're actually cracking because I washed them so fucking much.
Same.
So I'm just kind of showing it to you while we're talking because I don't want to go fully into it. Yeah. But I think there's 7 or 8 points. I think one is under the armpit, which always makes me laugh and makes me want to like flex my bicep or something. And so the top of the head, in between the brows or the Botox lady place, maybe that'll help and people will stop using Botox. And then here on the temples, and then under the eyes, right on the bones, right there on the cheekbones, and then here under the nose, and then under the lip. And then the big one is right under the collarbone. So a lot of times when I'm walking now and I go outside and I start to feel anxious, just like, oh, here's some people. Like you used to get excited to see people. Now you're like, oh, people.
Now we're all terrified of people.
So ridiculous. So I tap and I breathe and I walk, by people. And so the tapping, again, is just sending a signal to the body to slow down and relax. And when you have your feeling and you see that it's overwhelming, it would be good to tap while you're having the feeling and say, I hear you and I see that you're sad. Mm-hmm. And I know it's hard not to see your friend or your spouse or your child, which some people are separated from their children or their grandbaby, right? And what I know is that you have everything that you need and that you're safe and that you're okay. And you will get through this. You're gonna make it. You're gonna be fine. You have the ability. You have all the gifts. You have everything that you need. And so while you're doing the tapping, you start to send relaxation. So it's EFT. I want to say it again. And another form of therapy, if you're going to go into therapy right now, there's absolutely no excuse. People that are afraid to walk into an office and go, oh my God, people are going to see me. They think I'm crazy. I don't want anybody to think I'm crazy. You don't go to therapy because you're crazy. You go to therapy because you need help and you want to be well. So it's no different than going to the doctor if you have gas or you have something that's busting out or you're bleeding out your nose. You don't hesitate and go, I don't want to go to the doctor because people might see me and think I'm paranoid.
Right.
You go and you get help. Well, therapy's the same thing. I talk to my sister, I talk to my brother, I talk to my friend. I still feel like crap. Maybe I should go talk to a therapist, right? So telehealth medicine right now is everywhere. Anywhere you are in the world, you click, you look up, I need help. And trust me that you're going to find a million pages. There's Psychology Today, which is one of the most well-respected. And those clinicians, I'm even on there, you get vetted and it's all good. And they're all doing telehealth. So there is someone that's a professional that if you're having panic attack, if your anxiety is getting so high that you're now having panic, you definitely need to talk to somebody. And tapping is something that they can teach you to do. Mm-hmm. And the other therapy that I am just like the greatest fan of is EMDR. Eye movement, desensitization, reprocessing. That's why we never call it by its name, because it's like califragisticexpialidocious kind of.
Yeah.
Right? Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. So we say EMDR. I encourage you and all your viewers and my viewers to look that up as a therapy modality. It's usually done in person, but it absolutely can be done via telehealth. There's people out of my office doing it, which is Harmony Heals. Is my
so people can connect with Harmony Heals there.
And Laguna Hills. Look up Harmony Heals, Laguna Hills, Orange County, California. We're doing all telehealth, and we have all certified EMDR therapists. So it's tapping, next level tapping, because it's internal tapping using bilateral stimulation, which is right and left, stimulating the right and left sides of the body, stimulates the right and left side of the brain, and then it brings those two things in concert. If you think about it, in the right side of the brain and the creative side, and then there's the logical side. I usually get them backwards, so if they are, someone correct me. But those two sides of the brains, when you're having emotions, they don't connect.
Right.
And so when you're feeling feelings, you're lost in the feeling. It's this eternal thing that's never going to end. Like my clients are like, if I start crying, I'm never going to stop. And that's a lot of people's fear about feeding into the emotion. And then the logical side is like, that's impossible. You can't cry yourself to death. And trust me, I've never had a patient who started crying who didn't stop. In 34 years, that's never happened. Yeah. But when you're emotional, your logic doesn't come in to help you. Well, EMDR takes these two and makes them work together. So you could be in the worst traumatic emotional experience and your logical brain starts talking to you. It's the most magnificent thing. You should try it, Kate, if you've never tried it, just as an experiment. Yeah. And your logical brain starts going, oh, this actually isn't that bad. You start hearing these thoughts and you're like, who is that? And it's you. It's you. It's your own brain. It's your own thoughts talking to you while you're processing. And during the EMDR, the therapist will either give you these pulsers that you hold in your hands and they're pulsing left and right, or they'll give you a headset and you're listening to beeps. Those of you who played Pong back in the 70s with me, that's what it sounds like in your head. Some people use music to do it, and some people literally tap. So they'll tap right and left on your knees or on the backs of your hands, and they teach you this one. And while you're tapping right and left, the brain, right and left brain are getting signals and going, hey man, let's work this out. Let's get this feeling contained. Let's put it in its proper perspective. And when it comes to historical trauma, what it's saying to you is this happened a long time ago. This is not happening right now. And you start to feel the sense of power over the traumatic story because you're like, yeah, that happened a long time ago. Why am I so much pain right now? I'm in pain right now because while I'm in COVID and I'm being told to stay in my house, it reminds me of when my dad used to beat me and send me to my room and tell me to stay in my room, and I would cry myself to sleep. That's an easy connection for somebody to make. Or the children who grew up as latchkey kids whose parents were never home and they always came home to an empty house, or that only child who nobody was around when they came home from school and they were by themselves and they were the entirety of their whole universe and they grew up with that sense of loneliness. Well, this crap is going to trigger that for them. And so they need somewhere to go with that emotionally and remember, I'm an adult. I'm not stuck in this house. I can walk outside. I can Zoom with my best friend. I can call my neighbor and say, let's go for a social distancing walk together. I can do things to create that sense of contact that I desperately need. So EMDR is another tool that helps with that. But greater than all of that is our own resiliency. Like I said earlier, the power to believe in something will ultimately change your life trajectory. If you can believe, I will get through this, I will grow past this, I will do the things that I always wanted to do. I've been challenging my viewers and saying, what's your dream? Yeah. You know, I keep thinking of Pretty Woman. Everybody's got a dream. You got to have a dream. What's your dream? Do you remember the guy at the end of the movie? If you don't watch Pretty Woman, and he's like, what's your dream? What's your dream? And he's just like, everybody's got to have a dream. And I agree with that. Right. So this is Kate and I's dream. We're dreaming a dream right now.
It's true. Well, and especially in this time, I think people at first, they were like, okay, I don't want to do this for a week, but I'm going to do it. And now it's like a month later or 6 weeks later, depending on where you are. And it looks like a lot of places it's going to be June before people are back out, especially in any kind of big capacity. And even then, our world has changed. And so I think people are going to I think it's so important for people to find the help and support that they need right now, because most likely we're going to be dealing with this for months, possibly the next year or a couple of years, or possibly forever. Who knows? Right. They don't really know how this is all going to play out. And right now, like you said, there are so many different resources for people. I know there are like different text chains, like you can text different numbers just to be able to text with somebody. Like, we're not alone in this. We're all together in this. Right. And I'm sure it's crazy for you as a therapist to be going through this trauma and then also working other people through the same trauma that you're experiencing.
Yeah, it's, you know, that is a challenge. I'm laughing because I'm just looking at the comments because I can't read them without my glasses. And somebody decided to comment, I'm mad at you. And I don't know if he's being funny, but
I don't know if he means you or me, but
yeah, he's sending 500 different comments. Oh, you're beautiful, speak, bye-bye, and I'm mad at you. So thank you for expressing your feelings, because that's what we're talking about. Whatever they are, acknowledge them and feel them, and I appreciate you. I always tell people, if you're watching something and it's not your thing, get off. Don't watch them on. Don't need to be mean about it or critical about it.
That's true.
Just get off and stop watching. I watch people all the time, and I go on and off if it's not resonating in my heart. Being a trauma therapist and working with trauma, there was a patient that was referred to me, and the level of trauma and how paralyzed the person is right now, I chose to refer them out. And that is a rarity for me. But I felt like in my heart, the vulnerability that I have being a cancer patient right now in my own world and keeping myself above that, I felt like I know I can do a good job, but if I climb into that person's, in their headspace right now, I don't know where it's going to take me. And I wasn't willing to do that. And so, you know, you all are not therapists, or maybe a lot of you are therapists that are watching, I don't know. But what I want to say to you is always choose for yourself. You know, we're scared. Like, I'm scared. My income has changed dramatically. And now I can't even go out to go get work like I normally would. And the telehealth is fine. But like I said, you know, drop a rock. There's 500 therapists in my area doing the same thing, you know. So I guess I want to say, you know, don't let that fear, it's one more thing that's controlling us right now, is fear. And don't let that fear make you choose things for yourself that don't feel right. Like, it was really hard for me to make that decision because I need the money. Or of course I could benefit from the money. Let's say I don't need it, I could benefit from it. So I don't like to give anything too much power. And our words are very powerful, you know. So when you are being asked to do things right now, or given opportunities, or opportunities are being taken away, say, you know what, this must be taken away so that I can do something better for myself. There's some other path that I'm meant to take. There's some other vision that I have that I've been putting on the fence. And like I said a few minutes ago, what's your dream? You know, I've been dreaming to write forever. Like, my entire career, I'm like, I've got a couple of books in me. I keep saying 3. Maybe I have more, but 3 was my number. 1, I've got 1 down. So I'm like, okay, I've got 2 others, you know. when are you going to put attention to that instead of I have to go suit up, show up for work, get that paycheck, pay those bills, you know, and time starts to run out when you're on this side of 50 where I'm sitting, you know, and with the cancer, I have a very clear vision that I don't have time to waste, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So I'm catapulted into having to face what my dreams are and those things that I have on my bucket list. You know, this is one of them. This social media speaking, reaching out to as many people as I can, sharing my experience, my knowledge, my hope, hopefully inspiring. That's just one of the things on my bucket list. And so every day I'm reminded, I keep a little checklist and I write down, okay, did you tackle that? You know, what's on your bucket list and how are you tackling that? How are you making movement towards that, you know?
Yeah. I think that that's a really great idea too, to have a bucket list. I was thinking about that the other day because we have more time on our hands than we ever have before, which can be totally crippling. You know, it can just totally keep you from doing anything.
Moving.
But I think it's so important for us to sit down and say, what are my big dreams? And even once we come out of this, like travel, you know, things to sit down and dream, because we don't make time for ourselves to actually sit down and say, what do I really want out of this life? Where do I want to go? Who do I want to be? What are the things that I want to tackle? I want to have a TikTok. I don't know, whatever your like social media thing is, you know, use this, find a creative outlet, whatever it is, or even doing things around your house. I think I've seen a lot of people doing that kind of stuff where it's like, I never make time to paint these rooms and I'm doing that. And it's so important for us to find an outlet, or writing, and really just kind of feel the emotions. Like you said, feel the emotions that you're feeling, but find an outlet that you can work through those.
Even writing it down, you know, as I said earlier, the power of words are so powerful. So even if you write down what you've been dreaming, you've now manifested it. In essence, you're speaking to your spirit. I have a whole belief around our purpose on this planet, and our soul calls for us to do what is the thing that only we can do. You can't do it for me. I can't do it for you. Whatever my thing is, I am meant to be here to materialize that thing. And your dreams are that thing. Those are the things that will add up to the ultimate purpose that you're giving and bringing into this world that no one else can bring, because you're the only you on the entire planet. So think about how powerful that is. And if you withhold your dream, you don't know who misses out. You know, who doesn't benefit because you decided not to use your voice, use your art, use your music, plant your garden, bake for your friends, like whatever your thing is. It doesn't have to be a global, and it doesn't have to be fame and fortune, because this is a lot of pressure for people too. I should start a podcast. I should social media. I should go on YouTube because I'm going to be one of those millionaire YouTubers, which I'm fucking jealous about.
I think everybody is.
Everybody has we have our path and we have our destiny, and whatever it is for you, you have to show up for it. If you don't make that effort to move in that direction, nothing ever changes if nothing changes, you know? So even writing down on a list what your heart is calling you to do and has always called you to do. I did a group last week with some women that I work with in rehab, and I called them out and I challenged them, and they're going to have to check in with me on Friday. So if they're watching, I'm calling them out again. And I told them, what have you always dreamt? And one of them was like, to sing. And I go, why don't you sing? Because she goes, I don't sing well. And I said, here's your opportunity. You don't have to sing well to sing. If your spirit calls you to sing, sing. Sing in the shower, sing at home, put on the music and sing. Look up singing classes. Take a freaking singing class. Maybe you improve your voice. Maybe you're not going to be the next American Idol, but maybe you feel good enough that you can sing around your friends. So what? That's enough. It doesn't have to be, I want to get on stage and I want to be the next American Idol. Because honestly, one of the dreams that I dreamt was they would hire me as a therapist, and I would be backstage from American Idol for all of those people that cannot sing and lose their cookies and come backstage and they're devastated because no one ever told them the truth before they ever got on that stage.
Oh, geez.
And all
that
those
would be
people
crazy.
that thought they were doing them a favor just actually set them up to be traumatized. So I was like, oh my God, I would love to work with those people because they're delusional. And
Right.
nobody ever told them. Like, the kindest thing you could do to somebody is, I love you, but you can't sing.
Yeah.
But
I hope
you
that
are
American Idol sees this so
yeah.
they can just hire you, because I think
Yeah. I mean, it was something that I used to think, because you remember one day, and somebody must have sued them, because they don't do that anymore.
Right.
They don't like do these humiliating, put the worst singer on stage anymore. But
Yeah.
they used to, and I thought, oh my God, that's so traumatic, right?
It's
And
so crazy.
and who are you going to be upset with? I'm not upset with American Idol. I'm upset with my parents who let
Yeah.
me get up there knowing that I can't sing.
Or friends. I mean, those
Or
people
your
are
friends.
surrounded by a lot of people in their community. Like they're a little posse. There are a lot of people that supported them up to that point. It's
I
crazy.
know. So don't do that.
No.
You know, take
But take a
feedback,
class, like
be
you said.
aware.
There's so many free classes out there. Like if there's something that people want to do, and it's amazing how that will help your mental health too. Like how that will just change your perspective and just to give you purpose in some way. Because I think a lot of people are struggling right now because they don't have those outlets, or even like when you lose your job. I know so many people that have lost work, and
It's
I think all of us in some capacity have like lost work, and you're just looking for an outlet and looking for purpose. So I think it's so important.
Yeah. Well, I had to comment because it's too funny, because my girl Shay is saying, what about allowing others to figure it out on their own? Honey, if they didn't show up to American Idol, I mean, they showed up to American Idol to sing poorly. They were not figuring it out on their own.
We all need some friends.
Their
we all
journey,
need some people.
is to figure it out. But it took somebody saying, this is not your gift, for them to now start to have to process that. And yeah, everybody has to find their own path and their own journey. But sometimes somebody needs to tell you, you're on the wrong path. Like what you're doing isn't working. I mean, that's the insanity that I work with every single day when I work with addicts and alcoholics.
Yeah.
Like
Addiction.
they believe that they're okay, just like American Idol. They believe that what they're doing is working, that it's a gift, it's helping them concentrate, it's helping them get through struggles. And they believe it with their whole heart. And if someone doesn't come in and go, you know.
And sometimes you have to go back to that person numerous times, like family and friends, where a lot of times those people, and probably same for American Idol, where they're just on tunnel vision. They think that they're good singers, and their family, there probably are families that are like, yeah, you're not that good, or trying to talk them out of it. But same with addiction,
they're not hearing it.
They're not hearing it. And so you need to be there. But I want to ask you about addiction specifically, because I know that's another thing that people are dealing with right now. And I can see how easily you can slip into that, especially with alcohol and you're at home. And but I know a lot of people, right. Yeah.
Imagine having shopping addiction right now, being at home.
Yeah.
And Amazon's your best friend.
Right. So how can people deal with that?
I mean, addiction is such a spiritual malady, as they say. So it's a deeper wound, and it is a wound that underneath, looking at trauma, and addiction can manifest itself in food. We have so many people comfort eating right now, basically overeating right now. And those very same people may or may not be binging and purging. Eating disorders that are activated, shopping addictions, sex addictions. I'm sure those who are addicted to porn are going nuts right now. So part of it is to begin to notice in that person, is this really feeding my soul? Is it working for me? Is this okay? Is this giving me the result that I want? And sometimes when you're in the throes of addictions, you can't ask yourself those questions. The person who's eating disordered or sex disordered or, shopping disordered, someone who's using substances is going to have a harder time accessing that higher functioning in their brain. Family members that are around them starting to speak to them and taking those risks to say, I see you and this isn't okay and it's not working for you and I'm sad. There's very little you can do for the addict who isn't willing to accept help, but you can speak the truth to them. So I think a lot of it, is for us as partners and friends to start saying, I'm scared for you. I'm worried about you. This isn't working for you. Do you want a way out? Do you want the help? Because there's always help out there. Like I said, just Google help, 1-800-HELP or sober. There's a sober helpline. I know, and I always forget the name of it, but try sober help. That might be it. But there's so many resources in terms of addiction and shopping and things like that. I mean, these are empty wounds that you have, and you're trying to comfort yourself with something outside yourself that's never going to work. And part of it is just to tackle that and to put a pause between you and the impulse of buying one more thing on Groupon. It's like you have just a few seconds in between you and the addiction and the power that it has over you. And some of it is your self-talk, is like, do I really need this weed whacker right now? Do I need the weed whacker? Like, can I deal with the weeds a different way? Maybe I can. And just logically saying to yourself, do I need another mask? Like, I have 5 masks and I'm not even going outside. Do I need another one?
Right.
And some of it is enlisting the help of a friend and getting on the buddy system and accountability. Say, I don't want to shop one more time. I don't want to go and dive into that bag of Doritos. You know, can I donate them? Will you come by my house and I'll drop them on my porch and you pick them up? And I'm going to donate all my Doritos, all my Twinkies, all my, you know, crap, whatever, mac and cheese, whatever my comfort food is that I'm binging on. And the hardest thing is to get someone in that addiction to activate that ability to heal and to ask for help. It is so hard. But if anyone is listening, this is penetrating through that unconscious part of them that wants to get better. And it's things like this. It's just having the information, putting things on TV, on social media. I see it everywhere about, you know, you can stay sober, you can ask for help. There's online meetings for everybody anywhere. Look up In the Rooms and intherooms.com. And when you go on In the Rooms, it's every 12-step meeting that there is, including food and sex addiction, okay? And those, they have panels of therapists post meetings for people who need to do something deeper. So, you know, I want you to kind of challenge yourself to do that. And Shada, who always asks brilliant questions, is saying, is knowing enough? And no, you can know that you have a problem and never want to fix it. So that's where enlisting the support of people who love you. That's why interventions are one of the biggest impetuses to get someone to treatment, is because sometimes outside forces have to intervene on you. You know, for the shopaholic, sometimes it's bankruptcy. You know, and that was one of my favorites addictions, was shopping. And it was not an easy one to give up. And it was something I grew up with. Every time I was hurt or sad or confused or whatever, my mom seemed to take me to the mall. That seemed to be her solution. So without me knowing, that became my solution. And I ran up credit cards, and I had no sense or any respect for the money that I was earning and how to distribute that. Because if I wanted something, I impulsively would just go get it, even if it wasn't in my budget or I couldn't afford it. And then I would have the guilt and shame after I would do it. Sometimes I could go to the store and return it, but sometimes I felt ashamed and like somebody's knowing that I did this, and now so I'm speaking to anybody who has that. And whatever your addiction is, when you act on it, afterwards, you're left with the emptiness and the shame of the behavior. And that's mortifying. And that's where the work has to happen. In that moment of shame, if you can identify and feel what you're feeling and acknowledge to yourself, this doesn't feel good and this isn't okay, and this is no way to live my life, that's the moment of opportunity for them to ask for help or to reach out to someone or accept help. If people keep offering you help and you don't take it, then surrender. Today might be your day to get on your knees and say, today I accept the help. I'm going to take my brother up on his offer to drive me to rehab or whatever. So yeah, knowing isn't enough. It's an experience. It's an emotion. Everybody has their own bottom. My bottom was really, you know, running out of money and facing bankruptcy. Yeah. You know, that truly was my bottom, where I said, you no longer have money and resource to do this to yourself, and you have to stop. And post bankruptcy, I then forbid myself to go to the mall. That was a huge change in my life. I didn't enter a mall for probably a decade of my life because I did not trust myself to not compulsively shop. And it's not something I talk about a lot because it's one of the most accepted addictions in our society. Don't you know? in a
Especially now, because people
capitalist
can't go to the
America.
store.
Shop,
Yeah.
sister, shop. You know,
Right.
it's encouraged. You get coupons for it. You get bonuses.
And there's
you get,
so many sales
you're
right
such a
now.
good
Like
girl.
everybody, yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
every time I go on social media or anything, I'm seeing these 70% off or 90% off. And people are like, well, it's pretty much free. And I would love to be going to TJ Maxx right now, but I obviously can't. So you justify it. And I think it's so important too for people to pay attention to their friends and family and check in with them, because we have a responsibility too to be there for these people, you know, for different people that are going through depression or going through anything, abuse. I know we mentioned that earlier, you know, the child abuse and domestic violence are skyrocketing, and we probably don't even know exactly the numbers of that, because a lot of it obviously is happening behind closed doors right now. And at some point it's going to come to the surface, but we need to be checking in with all of our friends and family, and whether it's addiction that they're struggling with, or depression or anxiety or whatever, we need to check in with one another and like really create a community. If we don't have a community, we need to create that community or sustain that community.
So I think of three people right off the bat. I had a girlfriend who just celebrated 37 years sober.
Wow.
But her sobriety date is very close to the anniversary of losing her husband, who she lost in a drowning last year.
Oh, wow.
And it was tragic. It was obviously unexpected. They're still young. They're, you know, had just turned 60, I believe, but very, very healthy and very virile man. And he was gone like that. And so this last year for her has been a challenge to maintain her sobriety, because she had every reason in the world to pick up that drink, but she didn't. And she made it to 37 years. And we walked to the ocean together, socially distanced with our masks on. And I supported her in celebrating her sobriety and letting go of her spouse, who she never thought she could even imagine letting go of and was so unprepared for, you know. And so it's like, she sent out a message and said, I need to go to the beach tomorrow and I can't do it alone. And I said, done, I'm there. Now, she's a friendship I've developed over the last year. When she lost her spouse, we were like colleagues and we didn't like hang out. But when she told me she lost him, he and her were together throughout their entire sobriety together. They built a business together. They raised children together. And that's my story with my husband. And they were together over 30 years. That's my story with my husband. Mm-hmm. And so even though I was not her nearest and dearest friend, when I heard that, I showed up at her house. I had never been to her house or invited to her house. And I challenge you to do that. I challenge you, when you hear that someone's suffering like that and you know them, 3 degrees of separation, 6 degrees of separation, you can't imagine the power of you, not their best friend or their sister, the power of you who isn't their closest person showing up. That can change somebody's life, because you're like, oh my God, somebody saw me and went out of their way and their routine and their busy lives, especially me. People always go, oh, she's so busy. So if I show up, there's a lot of power to that. And I'm not saying that we go, oh, Gina Tabrizy, I'm so fabulous. No, because I know the perception of me is that woman don't have time. I don't know how she even breathes most days, you know? So I do challenge you to show up for your friends. And I do challenge you to go. I mean, I've thought of people that, again, that I'm not really connected to as well. And she's one of them. And it's been transformative to watch her heal and walk through that journey. Inspires me. And she didn't get that, you know? So selfishly, I got something from it. You know what I mean? And that's what happens when you show up for friends like that. I have another friend whose husband just got diagnosed with cancer. I immediately picked up the phone. I could have blown that off because I'm like, oh my God, I don't need to hear about one more cancer person. No, I was on the phone with her last night for an hour. When was the last time any of us got on the phone with anybody?
Right.
Talked for an hour to support her and to give her my story, because she knows my story through cancer. I always say cancer is a gift. That's how I see it, because it's taught me so much about myself and who I am in the world and what I'm meant to do. And I don't ever take it for granted. I have no room to take my life for granted, you know, and every breath that I breathe. So that's what I've been focusing on, is when I see people posting stuff, they lost their doggie or what, you know, I lost my dog right before all this crap. I'm so upset about it, but in January, right before this hit. Now I have an older dog who's kind of psychotic and doesn't really, he's the weirdest freaking dog. He should be a cat because he's like, I don't want nothing to do with you. Don't pet me. Don't look at me. But every 2 minutes he scratches the door. Give me water. Give me food. Okay, go away. That's my dog. So he's not a comfort during COVID. But the other little doggy, Bambi, was a tremendous comfort. He was the lap dog. He would sit on you. He would wrap his paws around my leg and try to crawl up my leg like a spider monkey just to get close. And there's a lot of comfort in that. And that's the kind of comfort that we're seeking. And to not have the human beings that are crawling up our legs, you know, like spider monkeys, you know, our kids or our grandbabies or our sisters or our brothers, it's a tremendous loss for all of us to not have that physical contact. So however you can get that, however you can give that to yourself, whoever you're sheltered with, to remember to keep that physical contact is so damn important. And you can wash your hands afterwards.
Right. You can wear a mask.
Wash your hands, wash your clothes afterwards.
Yeah.
But don't let fear take you to that place where you're not even in contact with the people that you're living with, you know?
Well, I keep seeing this meme going around saying we're all in this together. And I think we've all seen that, like, we're all in this together. We're all in this together. Everybody's saying we're all in this together. See it on TV. We're all in this together. But we need to remind ourselves that we're all in this together. And we need to remind other people that we're all in this together. And so I think those examples you gave are just reaching out to people, seeing people, anybody that you think about. Like, if you're thinking about them, there's obviously some reason. And so even shoot them a text or pick up the phone and call people. I think we're so quick to do whatever's the easiest, send them a Facebook message, Instagram them. No, pick up the phone and call somebody for 5 or 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be long. And like you said, that could just change somebody's life, it could change the place where they're at right now. If they're especially if they're dealing with something, or depression, we're all dealing with something right now. I feel like it's just world changing.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. I've had some really random people reach out to me that I was blown away by. I was like, really? You know, someone who reached out to me and said, I want you to know you changed my life. And it wasn't a client.
Yeah.
It was like a peer that I didn't even have any idea, because I have this habit of telling the truth. And I don't filter what I say. I say it very kindly, but right. I'm one of those people that if you want to know the truth, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not going to pretend, but I will say it with all the love in my heart. And so apparently I gave her some pretty intense feedback. She was starting a new business and she was unlicensed, and she had this sober living home that she was converting into residential treatment. And I'm like, where are your clinicians? And she goes, well, me and this other one. And I go, what are your credentials? And she had none. And I told her I would never refer to you, and this is why. And I said, I strongly encourage you, if you care about these women and you're treating women who have trauma, because in every addict, a Gina-ism is trauma is addiction. If you thought you never had it, you have it now. So know that. And I preach that and I practice that. So I told her, and I said, you're dealing with trauma survivors and you're not capable of doing it. So she called me. She set up a time to talk and said, I never forgot that you said that. She goes, it inspired me to go back to school. She went back to school, got her master's, got licensed, and says, I will never again hire someone who doesn't have that level of credential to work with women with trauma. And that was probably a decade ago. So, and I just was making a comment, you know what I'm saying? But that comment, because she was willing to hear it, once again, you have to be willing to listen. It changed the trajectory of her life. And now she's a therapist and she loves it and she's doing amazing work. And I celebrate her, and it blew me away. And it was she just took the time to thank me for a comment that I made her. And I've had a few people reach out in that way. So I had like some helplines and things I wanted to share, but I also see Shada can't help herself. She said another comment. What if you're addicted to your feelings? That's an interesting thought. I've never heard of someone being addicted to their feelings. I have heard of some personality disorders, like borderline personality disorder or bipolar mania, that often causes you to be a prisoner to your feelings, and you react to everything emotionally with little ability to logically comprehend and to be able to contain your emotions. But addicted to them, you know, you're talking about someone who's suffering a deeper personality disorder, like histrionic personality disorder, which is very much that personality as well as borderline. So I would tell somebody, if they feel that their emotions are dictating the entirety of the actions of their life, that they really need to see a therapist. They need to do a deeper dive, because you need to honor and respect your feelings, but you certainly shouldn't be prisoner to them. And if you feel you're addicted to your emotion, that's like somebody who creates drama, is what it makes me think of, Shada. Someone who always has to elevate a situation by adding more intensity to it. And that's a level of disorder. That's not a healthy way of navigating through life and through our emotional place. So if you find yourselves with very high highs and very low lows, it is likely that you might have a chemical imbalance, which is what actually causes the bipolar, is one of the causes for bipolar disorder. She's really on it today, huh?
She is. We should have
Wouldn't you
her on
agree
here too.
that the layer of depression comes from that? A layer of depression comes from addiction to your emotion? No, I would not agree with that at all, because depression is primarily due to a chemical imbalance, which often is due to hormonal imbalance, which is exactly what happened to me. And I can tell you that in the throes of my addiction, when I was suicidal and wanted to jump out a window, I was not addicted to that feeling. I would have given anything and done anything to get out of that feeling. And I did. And I went to doctors who gave me multiple medications. One made me worse than the other. Sometimes I'd take an antidepressant and I would become more suicidal. I went to hormone doctors who threw my estrogen and progesterone levels up and down like a yo-yo. And I basically looked like somebody who was bipolar. I would have the highest highs and the lowest lows. And I was basically going and entering into perimenopause and menopause. And I went basically treated but untreated for a very long time. And it was only through holistic services that I started to regain some balance. And that's my story. Some women can take synthetic or bioidentical hormonal treatments and find balance. They could not get me right for 8 years. And I will tell you, I was not addicted to that. And if I sound passionate to that, I 100% am passionate to that. No one chooses depression as a choice. Okay. You can feel sorry for yourself. That's a choice that you make. Your thought process, your actions, those are choices that you make. But trust that depression and anxiety create and cause chemical changes, and chemical changes cause and create depression. There is no one known cause, but these are factors added together that create the depression, and you become prisoner to it. Depression can become an identity, I will say that, but I won't say you're addicted to it and therefore you stay in it. I refuse to support you in that theory, Shada. And so what I will say is that you can over time accept it as an identity and have fear of letting go of the depression. So those of you who have been depressed most of your life, and you keep saying, I'm depressed, I have depression, I'm depressed, I have depression, it becomes part of your identity. I always say I'm a survivor, if you notice, of depression, because it no longer has its grip on me. And when it comes, I beat the crap out of it. Like, I'm like, you ain't taking me down, not again. And I fight it. And that's a choice, because I don't want it to be my identity. So if being sick has become your identity because it's all you know, sometimes we're afraid to give that up. And this is a time for those of you that have depression or anxiety or OCD or whatever mental health order you're dealing with, is to say to yourself, is this it? Is this the entirety of my life? Does everything in my day revolve around this disorder? Is that the only conversation I know how to have with people? Is that all I know how to talk about? Then that's a time to take inventory and say, it has now become who you are, and it is not who you are. No mental health disorder is who you are. It's a label. It's a theory. It's a concept. It's a way to work with you. It's a way to identify for you that you have this symptom checklist. But in no way in hell is it who you are. And I will be extremely passionate about that. Don't ever allow it to be your identity, because that is where it will hold power over you and you will not heal from it.
Yeah.
And you absolutely can heal from any of those disorders. Number one, you have to believe that you can. And I've said it already 10 times in this live. And if you believe that, that's half the work. But it is not your identity. It's something that's happening to you. It's a dysregulation in your body, in your emotions, in your spirit. You have everything that you need to grow past that and become who you're supposed to be. Yeah. And Shada's saying, what about the word I'm depressed? The power
Gina, I got to stop you because we only have 20 seconds left of this Instagram live. It's going to shut us out. But I hope that everybody follows you. I'm going to tag all of your pages. If people want to ask more questions, they can ask Gina on Wednesday. But Gina, thank you so much for coming on. This was so awesome.